Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Humanitarian Horizons. Christina DiArcangelo Unveiled. Thank you so much for joining us today. And with me, I have a guest today that is international, once again, across another side of the pond in the United Kingdom. Welcome, Jill. How are you today?
Oh, hello. I'm very well, thank you. Lovely to be chatting to you, Christina.
Oh, I'm so excited that you could join us today because I'm lucky to also have a relationship with one of your sisters. And she and I work together and with one of your nephews. And we were
Yeah,
conversating one day and they told me about you and the amazing work you were doing. And it's so humanitarian focused. I mean, they're working in a humanitarian setting as well, but they're on a different side of the trajectory from a humanitarian side, more on medicine, development, those kinds of things.
yeah.
You are on a different side of the humanitarian, if you would say, pendulum. And so, why don't you introduce yourselves to everyone, Jill? And why don't we just get into it?
Lovely. Well, first of all, my sister is my biggest fan. So I hope there is some interest to other people here and it's not just because she adores me.
No.
But yeah, I mean, basically, I have got involved in a charity in Kenya. And I suppose the reason what started it off for me actually was a few years ago. We lost my mum, my sister, my dad has also gone. And I think through feeling those losses, I just remember thinking, if I die tomorrow, what have I done to help somebody, to make a difference, just to be able to say I've made, just help somebody personally. I never set out to do anything massive. I didn't feel like I was that person that could do that at all, but this is kind of where I am today. And it's been a real life changing journey, really. I suppose the only good thing out of losing family members is this. At first, actually, I seen this program and I was like, oh, it was this lady being a surrogate. So I was like, oh, maybe I could do that. I've had lots of kids. I was good at that. So I actually had twins for somebody a few years ago. They were struggling for years. So I had the twins. Then the year after, about 18 months after, I had a little boy for somebody, which was the beginning of last year. And kind of along the journey of surrogacy, I was just like, to be honest, it was just like I needed more and more. And I just couldn't sit still, really. I think part of that parts of it was to focus on something positive instead of
The grief.
thinking about what I'd lost.
Yep. The
Really.
grief and the
Yeah,
grief
the grief.
part is really it's difficult. I align with you there because we have similar stories. I lost my mom, my brother, and my dad. So, and there were all that's it. That's all I had in my family. I didn't have a lot of siblings. So
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean with the grief. And I too, like with what I do with my jobs, it's to help people. And I've always helped people with my job, but it's been even more focused on the humanitarian side of things because I've always been a humanitarian, just like you have been. But we're looking to do more and more and more because it helps us feel better,
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it as well, I think is hiding from dealing with the grief, I think. To a degree as well, but however we look at it, it's helped me massively focusing on these things, and a friend of mine, she went over to Kenya. She went to take some shoes to this little school called Jollarabi. And while she was there, she would go on social media every evening and she would put little updates on. And honestly, I was absolutely hooked. I couldn't wait for the evening to come. She'd be back at the hotel and she'd be putting a little update on. And it was just, seeing the great work they were doing over there, at this little school. They took the 750 children at the school and they were taking all of these shoes over to try and fit, as many children as they could with a pair. Their shoes were hanging off their feet. And anyway, so I would see these updates. I was just like, I have to get involved in this. So I first started off just sponsoring one of the kids to go to the school there, a little girl called Farida. And then I was just like, right, when can I go? Unfortunately, it was COVID at the time. So it slowed me down a little bit, as it did everybody. So eventually I got there, and, I just remember kind of just before we landed, actually, we were coming into land, and I remember just seeing, like, you're looking around and you're thinking, the airport, it's the same tarmac. They've got lush green grass all around it. They've got a really pretty building, for their airport terminal. And you kind of see that. And yet I knew what it was really like from photographs that I'd seen. I'd never been to a third world country before. So I was just it was unexpected. I don't know what I thought it would be, like we were going to be turning up and the runway was going to be rubble. I'm not sure. But, it was just different. And anyway, as soon as I got in the taxi and I was heading to the hotel, it's just, Kenya's changed my life, now seeing how they live, the little put-up shops that they make with little pieces of wood and a bit of tin roof, that looks like it's going to collapse at any second. And they've got all these what look like dirty objects, really, or, dirty clothing, dirty shoes, but there's just because there's so much dust there.
Yes.
But you see all of this, and we get to the hotel, and, from there we went up to school, and the children, they're just so happy to see you. Obviously we took shoes. That's what we went to do. I got onto that. So we went to take shoes, but, and I love school life at Jollibee. It's really amazing. The charity is called Educate the Kids. And it looks for the poorest of the poor children in the local villages, so they can better their lives, obviously, because they've maybe got less chance, and so that they can better the lives of their family. So, they also feed the kids. The kids get a cup of porridge at breakfast. They get like something like rice and beans at lunchtime. Whereas most of the time these kids would go hungry and would not get a meal at all that day. Some of them, it's a safe place. Some really horrible things happen to the kids back home, and it really is a lifesaver for them kids to go to that school. It cost me £11 a month to sponsor a child to go there, and that feeds them, it teaches them, a lot of the teachers there were students themselves. The charity's been going for about 20 years, I think it is.
Oh, that's a long time.
Yeah, so it's starting where a few of them are becoming the teachers themselves, and they want to give back, to the school for what they did for them. So they come work at the school. So it's a fantastic community. When we go out in the villages, that's where it gets you at school. But when you go in the villages, all you want to do is help. All you want to do is help, and you just wish you could help everybody and change all their lives. But I remember when I first went into the village, the very, very first person I met, the first house we came to actually, was a lady called Irene. I just remember Irene walking out of her house with her little tot right next to her. Must have been about under 2 years old, and this little one is walking over broken glass, with no shoes on, walking over broken glass to come and say hello to us, to greet us. So happy, and mum was painfully thin. Anyway, we went in. They were living in a mud hut that was rented. There wasn't much mud in the hut. It was a lot of holes. It was also on a floodplain. Obviously there was very damp ground. They didn't have any beds. They were sleeping on a piece of cardboard on the floor.
And there was a lot of them living there, right? In that small hut.
She had 7 children. Yeah. Well, actually, she has 6 children. The 7th child that she had living with her was she took in because it was a friend's child. Fortunately, there was a threat to the child being raped from the stepfather. So it's awful, and unfortunately it happens a lot, you know. So she took the child in, you know, she was struggling herself, you know, she also had a child who has diabetes. He was very, very poorly a lot, regularly at the hospital, because he just, you know, she couldn't afford his insulin. You know, she was a single mom.
And you have to put it in a refrigerator, insulin.
You do. You have to put it in the refrigerator. She didn't have a refrigerator. She was putting the insulin in small buckets of water, which even if it was cold when it went in there in Kenya, it wouldn't stay cold for very long. But needs to go in a refrigerator. The child was getting really poorly. They couldn't figure out, you know, why is this child, you know, he's getting regular insulin now because I'd helped him. Why is it not working? Why is he still repeatedly in hospital? And it was simply down to not having that refrigerator. I've got Irene a fridge now. I got it sent to her a few weeks ago. But I mean, there's, you know, she's such a hard worker, and they really do over there. They really do want to, you know, a hand up, not a handout.
Right.
You know, they want to be able to better themselves.
And they want to be self-sufficient. They want to be able to do things
absolutely
for themselves and take care of their family. But without any money, you know, it's very hard to do.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what it must feel like to be, you know, to be in that situation. I mean, when I met her, as I say, she had nothing. The second time I actually went over there, she was having to stay with a friend because there'd been floods. So the property was no good. She couldn't stay there. It was flooded. And so I helped her with some rent, and she, you know, she went and found somewhere else different, you know, kind of short term. And then, you know, the next time I seen her, we were like, look, how can I try and help you, you know? And if I'm honest, Christina, I didn't know how to help people because I've never, you know, the problem is so big. I felt it was very overwhelming for me, because as much as I want to help, I don't really know how to.
Right.
So I spoke to a few of the teachers and some of the people who work at the school, and, you know, I ended up setting Irene up in just a very small business, selling some wood. So she's been selling the wood, and she's really, really doing such a great job.
That is so awesome.
Honestly, she's added like charcoal now, so she's selling charcoal and the wood. And when I went to visit her when I went to Kenya in February, we turned up at a new I say new house, obviously it's still rented, but it was a brick building, you know, not like our brick buildings, but it was a brick building. You know, it had 2 bedrooms in it. It had a room for her wood, you know, where she could sell it from. It also had like a little kitchen area, you know, where it's built a fire kitchen area, but it was a kitchen area, you know, and she had like a dog and cats, and, you know, and she had chickens and ducks. And it was just amazing to see how she's, you know, it cost me about £100 to set her up in that business, and she's completely turned her life around.
That is amazing.
She even had a guy in the backyard, and he was chopping all of her wood for her, you know, and I was just like, this is amazing, Irene, you know, you're an employer now. This
wonderful.
So great, you know.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're getting close to our end already. It goes by so fast. And I mean, don't worry, we're going to have you. I'd love to have you on again, like we originally discussed, so we can talk about additional things you're doing and additional call to actions, right? Because one of the things,
lots going on.
One of the reasons why I wanted to do this was so that people were aware of what's going on. A lot of times people don't know things like this happen, and they don't have access to it, and people don't talk about it. And so I wanted you to come on so we could start this journey, at least from a standpoint of trying to educate people on what's going on in Kenya and what you're doing and what you're working on, and what a true humanitarian you are, along with all these other individuals that are part of the charity and other people that are helping participate in charitable donations and things like that, because I know you have a big community of people behind you, which
Yeah.
is so important. So I wish we could talk more, but I think we're at the end of our time. So
Oh,
I just wanted to
thank you so much, Christina.
thank you. And thank you for joining me today and sharing
Oh,
what your why is first, because I thought that was important. Let's talk about what your why is, why you're doing what you're doing. And then the next time we could talk about what's really, what's going on. What are you guys working on now? What's coming, from a goals standpoint that you guys are looking to track to.
sure. Oh, I'll look forward to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And with every
Thank
one of
you.
our, yeah, thank you. And with every one of our podcasts, we always want to thank our listeners and viewers and our followers for following us. And hopefully every time they do, they learn something from us and they actually learn that it's really important to be a humanitarian. So thank you. Thank you to everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks.